My name is Serkan Topal. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Duisburg-Essen in Germany, and I will be presenting results from a project that me and 3 other colleagues were conducting for the last almost 3 years. And that project focuses on the platform economy and questions of regulation and social security in the platform economy. I think I need to activate the presentation mode, sorry. Yep, okay, sorry. All right, some key characteristics, some known, some unknowns about the platform economy. Estimates are around that, Elisa already mentioned it, that there's approximately 28 million platform workers in the European Union. That figure is estimated to rise in the next years. And there's about 5.7% of the German workforce who report to earn their income from platform work on a regular basis. There are other studies that suggest it's probably a number around 500,000 to 1.6 million. And I could name 10 other studies with 10 different figures. You all probably know this problem. There's a lot of diverging understandings of platform work, a lot of different modes of survey, which result in these big differences. But nevertheless, there's a high degree of fragmentation and de-institutionalization of labor in the platform economy. We can see that about 9 out of 10 gigs in the EU are carried out on a solo self-employed basis. And I think also the 2 speakers before me mentioned that, pointed that out really, really well, I think, that collides with basic principles of the systems of social security, especially in Germany, which is a welfare regime which is predominantly centered around the standard employment relationship. And here that's especially problematic because we see that in the platform economy, short-term and rather volatile interactions replace long-term commitments, which would be facilitated through a employment contract, which in a lot of cases is non-existent. There are, in general, diagnoses of precarious employment situations, which see an unstable, rather low incomes. You also see, in general, a lack of social security and regulation. There is some national legislation, and for instance, in Spain with the riders law, but even there, most of the current legislation, among them the riders law, focuses on the visible kind of work, on the location-dependent gig work. Which is not to say that they shouldn't focus on that. That's fine. But what tends to be overlooked somewhat is that kind of work, which is location independent, which is online platform work. And however, there are some approaches to tackle issues in this type of platform work as well. There's the EU directive, which exactly 10 days ago, it came into effect. Now the member states have 2 years to implement the approaches formulated, or the directives, regulatory approaches. And the question remains what that really means for legislation. We still have the problem that the current regulatory approach to combating lack of social security in the platform economy focuses on the issues of reclassification, but then there's the problem that does not cover the social protection of all platform workers. And we then see the need that somehow there are precarious features of platform work, and we need a framework, a legal policy framework that accounts for this heterogeneity of platform work, and it hence extends social protection to all kinds of workers. And then here we focus not only on the workers themselves, but also stakeholders from the world of work, be it employer associations, trade unions, and whatnot, because they are the key actors in implementing policies. So this is why we kind of develop this dual perspective. The data is also coming from 2 sources. We try to develop a mixed methods approach. We started with an online survey conducted in December 2022 among self-employed platform workers in Germany, with a total number of cases of 719. And this was part of the research project me and my colleagues worked on, called Platform Work and Platform Economy and Social Security, funded by the FIS network of the Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs. And respondents were predominantly male, had a rather high educational background, all things that we pretty much know already about the socio-demographic characteristics of platform workers. And then we also have qualitative data coming on the one hand from interviews with self-employed workers, 20 in total, and then interviews with experts, stakeholders from the work, 10 in total. And coming to the results, we first asked them, there's a lot of research on working conditions from a, let's say, more objective point of reference, looking at how long do these people work, at what times do they predominantly work on the weekends or in the week. And we try to shift the perspective more towards the subjective perceptions of that work that platform workers are doing. And what we see here is, well, there is a strive for additional income. Most respondents, and we also see this with platform work in general, report that they only do platform work as a side job, not even a regular one, just a sporadic side job. And only 11% of our respondents report that they do platform work as a regular main job. And we asked what exactly is maybe the reasoning behind that, and we see that in the interviews people say that it's very uncertain to rely on this kind of income, because especially this is a content creator who works in the attention economy. So she said everything is short-lived. One thing might be successful the one moment, but the next no one really cares about it. So that's really uncertain, really dependent on if people like you or not. So there's an irregularity of payments and an uncertainty, and that's already mentioned also in the beginning, that there's also unstable incomes. But then we also see people, maybe on the more positive side, really think that they can basically do what they want, to put it a bit extreme. They can be their own boss. They can determine themselves how to work, when and where. And that's really positive. But on the other side, we have people speaking on the algorithmic management with structures and most things that happen on a platform, saying that this is basically a law of nature, which you can't really do anything against. Also highlighting that sense of dependency, while thinking that really flexibility and autonomy play a really big part of why people do platform work in the first place. And if we come to the more macro perspective on questions of regulation, we see that, well, it's maybe to surprise that almost unanimously there's no preference neither for a employment contract nor for mandatory social security. Respondents clearly prefer to continue to work on a self-employed basis, and would rather social security to remain voluntary for all. And then one might wonder why that is, and look for explanations for this kind of, we might say, aversion against regulation. Really no desire to be subject to more regulation than there is, and there is not much at the moment. And we see there's, on the one hand, a preference for self-responsibility. People say, we have two very selective cases here. If you look at it, it's two IT freelancers which earn pretty high incomes. So it's a bit of an exclusivity, which they say you don't have to worry about our colleagues in the IT sector. That's they would rather have the say over their security, over their own provision. Leave risk management to me. I can take on this responsibility. People saying I've never believed in the state pension, and then this is also, we can see the distrust in the functioning of the institutions, of the long-term resilience of the institutions of social security, with people reporting, my father was self-employed, had a health problem, lost all the provisions he had, and this kind of results in a loss of trust for people. He says, I'd rather have things where it's my own fault if it's gone. And another one reporting his dissatisfaction with policies as is, with how the government is handling issues of social security and of regulation in general. Now turning I want to be a little bit quick. Yeah, okay. Now, this is kind of the same thing with the stakeholders who also express their dissatisfaction with the functioning of the institutions of Social Security, who also perceive the current legislation to be really sluggish and not really innovative with their approach to regulating platform work. We have, this is a unanimous around across all stakeholders, but we also have some differences, which I'll come to shortly. What we see is that in general, the employer associations in particular believe that the compulsory social insurance, mandatory insurance, will not compensate for the funding difficulties within the German social welfare system. But still, even them, which you might, this is also an association which represents the interests of IT freelancers, meaning, again, people who generally are rather well off. Even they told us that, still there's a need for a more comprehensive framework of regulating platform work. And this is, again, even the representatives of IT freelancers say that generally in platform work, there's low incomes. And so we need to look at how this reduces perspectives or prospects of adequate pension provision. So, and again, here people really stress the heterogeneity of platform work, say there's no one size fits all solution for any of this. We have to look at it like in a more nuanced way, instead of trying to just apply one framework. This is why they call for openness, so alternative to new ways of provision, be it with a 401k, looking at America, or RSPs, registered retirement savings. I wrote that down earlier, in Canada. And however, still, and this is, I think, pretty interesting, it's paradoxical. On the one side, they call for openness. On the other, they say, there's no need to introduce a third category in Germany. We don't need something beyond the traditional dichotomy of dependent employment on the one side and self-employment on the other. This is not necessary. This is stated by all stakeholders. And I think that shows signs of rigidness of the German welfare regime. That is, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, still centered around standard employment relationship on large contracts. Yeah, right, I'm coming to the end. And then there's differences in people. Well, we asked, what about the mandatory social protection for all? Should there be an opt-out or not? We have some saying yes, there should be an opt-out, others saying no. Not really, again, no suggestions of what can be done. It's rather this one party saying, yes, we need that. Everything else is a withdrawal from the solitary system, which needs collectivity, which can't really rely on individualism. And we have also people who say that's maybe a necessary evil that we wouldn't really want to take. And it's better if we have as much freedom as possible, pointing to this self-responsibility. Yeah, skip that. So concluding, first off, I want to reiterate there's a preference for self-responsibility. People preferring to do their work beyond state control, rather low demands for regulation, even an aversion against regulation among the people, which comes from a distrust in the functioning. This is not a general, negation of the worth of regulation and social security in general, but people reporting that they lost their trust in the system. Meaning there have to been trust in the first place, and the goal now must be to restore that faith. I think this is pointing that the directive is one of many steps. But that's not really all that needs to be, there is still more room to grow, let's say, and more work has to be done, because we see that approaches are necessary. Regulation remains relevant because there's low prospects of adequate social provision. And we need to maybe think outside of the box, think outside of the established dichotomy of dependent employment, of self-employment. And this maybe takes time. This also takes for research, to collaborate, to sit together with stakeholders and maybe try to implement new ways of thinking about regulation, and not only, you know, withdrawing ourselves to the systems that we know and maybe not adequate for the platform work we have at our hands. So thank you. Sorry for